I want you to take a look at this section of the map in the new Araco map. This section right here is a trap. There's a health pack, there's no death pit, and there's no windows or doors. Once you're in, that's it. This map is very differently designed than a lot of the other maps in Marvel Rivals. This map is designed to be unfair, and it's designed to be unfair to one particular team. Today what I'd like to do is I'd like to look over all the fascinating details that were poured into this map, as well as look at the design principles so that you can get the best use and the best understanding out of this map before Season 2.5 launches. I want to start off by looking at each of the spawn rooms and taking in some of the details, because we're likely going to be so busy when this map finally launches that we really aren't going to take a look at any of the art. In the defensive area, we can see lots of batteries and such sprinkled along the floor. If we turn around and take our camera out a little distance, we can see this Ultron factory with some poorly rendered models of Ultron. This was likely used in order to save polygon space, as obviously we can kind of get the idea of the shape of Ultrons out here, and we just need to simply know that. It's interesting that they decided not to do 2D art, something that we saw in the previous version of this video when we looked at Krakoa. I love the designer's choice in here to set up almost everything to be this black and red, or maybe dark purple and really reddish orange color palette. It really drives home the feeling that this entire thing is basically one big part of Ultron. We can look into some of these off rooms and see something that looks strikingly like a servitor from Destiny 2. And again, we see this color palette slightly shift as we change and go throughout the rest of the map. Moving over to the offensive room, we can see the actual payload for this map, which is, for lack of a better word, a Groot payload. It's just a slight different color variation on his actual bark. You'll see these portals that are scattered around here, and we'll have to get back to those when we're actually able to touch ground. When I'm in the spectator mode, I'm not actually able to see that, so we'll have to stick around for that one. The skybox itself even emulates the style that Ultron is giving. The overall story for this is that Ultron's basically taking over the planet, and this payload is being used to shut down what is effectively the mainframe of Ultron's big base, a way to naturalize it. And we can see that reflected, that we can see nature fighting back reflected from the offensive spawn. A lot of the areas around here are already broken, with plants growing in places that realistically they shouldn't, as sort of a defiance to Ultron itself, which I love that a bit of environmental storytelling. But now we start to get into the actual design of this map, and one of the things we can see here is how favored the offensive team is on this map. Obviously, this first little spill out area here is pretty neutral, but even just in this spot, the offensive team is fighting from high ground onto the enemy team that will be fighting below. While it is a bit of a meme that it's over, Anakin, I have the high ground, there absolutely is something to it, especially if you have splash damage. It's a lot easier to hit targets with your splash damage if they're already on a lower level where you can easily shoot their feet and still have a chance of hitting them, and also have a better chance of shooting them in the head, as it's going to be respectively a little closer to you. We're gonna have to wait for this payload to get to the end of this checkpoint in order to see more of this map. While we wait, let's take a look at these balconies. These balconies are yet another reason and another example of how this map is designed to be unfair. This team, the offensive team, will pretty much always have the high ground for a good 60% of the map. Again, something we'll see as this payload continues to move and continues to make progress through the map. The offensive team is constantly being given in a tactically advantageous position, and what's even more interesting is that this tactically advantageous position is pretty much exclusive for any characters who have range. In other words, this map is trying to encourage a poke meta. This map is trying to shut down any sort of melee or brawler or low mobility style of heroes, and encourage heroes who can just simply walk out onto a balcony, open fire, and profit, as many things that don't have the ability to get up to them aren't going to be able to shut them down other than just simply running away. I find that very interesting. There's lots of doors and areas that have seemingly no exit. Rooms that seem to just abruptly end into what looks like just a lone health pack. But this is something that, again, we're going to need to come back to when we actually get to play the character, because there's a lot more going on. There's more secrets to be found in this map, and I love how this map is laid out, because If you're aware, each of the maps, every single zone within Marvel Rivals is designed around a particular theme. So for example, Krakoa and Arakko are designed to specifically be built around portal play, but this map is even more so different than the rest of the maps. But again, we'll see. It's at this point here, as the payload continues to exit into the second checkpoint, that the script on who has the advantage begins to flip. Now, the defensive team, once we're about halfway in, now has a default tactically advantageous position. The balconies that were previously used by the offensive team have become a level surfaced playing field for the defensive team. Basically, this is the point in the map where the gradient shifts from being an offensive favor to the defensive favor. Now the offensive team is going to have to put in the extra work. Again, we can see more details that are scattered around this map as we're looking through and looking at all of the arts and pieces of information that the designers have put in here. Lots of really cool looking stuff. One of my favorite things here is in this room right here, in one of the spawn rooms. This is Ultron, one of these skins that you can see, and he's on his throne and he's looking extremely regal. A lot of the wires and out of balance areas are surprisingly well modeled. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that didn't need to be as carefully taken care of as they are. Nobody's realistically going to see this, but nevertheless, somebody went out here and actually made the wires somewhat make sense in the out of bounds. And even more areas that we can see. There's this Ultron bot, for lack of a better word, that looks like he could have been a Roomba in a past life. Don't know what his deal is. So now that we're done with spectator mode, let's go back and actually take a character through this. Appropriately, we're going to take Ultron through here. Those portals aren't the most interesting at face value, but again, this leans more into the evidence that this map is designed to give the offensive an advantage first. These portals all take the team to a position that is pretty hard for the enemy team to get on top of themselves. Each of these portals are set up in such a way that at the best thing that they can do is meet them on a level playing field. The enemy team is coming from a spawn that also has access to this portal, so it's definitely going to be an area that's going to see a lot of fight. In fact, I would not be surprised if this area up here ends up being a section of the map that ends up getting trapped in some capacity, or maybe some high fire gets set up here, something with range, something that can deal a lot of damage, maybe a Squirrel Girl, maybe a Penny Parker, anything of the sort. These trap rooms that we saw earlier reveal more information to us once we actually get into them and use our chronovision. The interesting thing is that these maps and these sort of trap rooms are designed to be shot and broken down. A lot of the Arakko map is designed in such a way that it encourages you to use your chronovision, the vision that allows you to see what areas are destructible. Had you never checked this, I'm willing to bet that a lot of these sections of the map you would never have guessed are areas that you can actually shoot from. It seems like they're trying to hide information from you. In fact, that trap room that we saw earlier is meant to be accessible by likely the defensive team as they're coming in. They can break down the walls in here, grab the health pack, and then fight. Now, grant you, they're coming out of a very small room, which would make it sort of easier for them to get picked off, but they still have options. They still have two different hallways that they can escape from, or if they have any sort of mobility, they can just walk their way out or jump their way out over the top. I can't leave this off without talking about this particular hallway right here that looks very menacing. This hallway has bots that I don't recognize as well as some that I do sticking out of the wall. In particular, there's Doom, and then there's this strange bot that I have never seen before. The rest of these you can see on the Shin Shibuya map, as they seem to be just simply reused models, but this bigger bot is interesting. I don't know what this is intending to be, and I would love that if you know where this bot is from or what it's likely hinting at, that you'd let me know in the comments down below. If you have a map that you would like me to take a look at, drop that in the comments as well, and subscribe, as it means the world to me. Bless your faces, and deuces.